The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the sprawling estate of Tyler Grant. The manicured lawns stretched out like a sea of emerald, dotted with vibrant flowers that danced in the gentle breeze. Towering palm trees swayed gracefully, framing the opulent mansion that stood as a testament to Tyler's wealth. It was a world of luxury, where every detail was meticulously curated, and extravagance was the norm. Yet in the midst of this grandeur at the edge of the garden, Lily Thompson worked diligently, tending to the flowers with a genuine passion that contrasted starkly with the lifestyle of her employer. Lily knelt on the ground, her hands immersed in the rich soil, feeling the earth between her fingers. She took a moment to breathe in the fresh scent of jasmine that surrounded her, a soothing balm against the chaos of the world outside the estate. Her simple attire, a faded t-shirt and jeans, spoke of humility and practicality, a stark contrast to the designer clothes that adorned Tyler's guests during their extravagant soirees. She was a gardener, and she took pride in every blossom she nurtured, every weed she pulled. As she worked, the sound of laughter and clinking glasses drifted from the patio where Tyler and his friends had gathered. Tyler Grant, the billionaire mogul known for his sharp business acumen and ruthless tactics, was the epitome of success in the eyes of many. He was tall, with dark hair that fell just above his piercing blue eyes, which seemed to glimmer with a mix of ambition and mischief. Today, however, as he lounged in a sun-soaked chair, his gaze kept drifting toward Lily, who was oblivious to the attention she was attracting. "Hey there, beautiful," Tyler called out, his voice carrying a playful tone. Lily glanced up, her heart racing for a moment. She met his gaze, her brown eyes wide with surprise. "Mr. Grant, please call me Tyler," he interjected smoothly, a charming smile spreading across his face. "You do incredible work here. The garden looks fantastic." "Thank you," Lily replied, a hint of warmth creeping into her voice. But she quickly returned to her task, feeling a twinge of discomfort. She had heard whispers about Tyler's reputation, stories of his business dealings, and the way he treated people who crossed his path. She wasn't interested in becoming another name in his collection of fleeting infatuations. Tyler, however, was undeterred. He stood up and strolled toward her, his confidence radiating like the sun above. "What's your secret, Lily? How do you make these flowers bloom so beautifully?" He leaned against a nearby tree, arms crossed, watching her with an intensity that made her cheeks flush. Lily stood up straight, brushing dirt from her hands. "It's all about patience and care. Plants need time to grow, just like people do," she said, meeting his gaze with an air of professionalism. "Wise words," Tyler replied, his voice lowering slightly as he took a step closer. "You know, I appreciate someone who understands the value of patience. It's a rare quality in my world." She felt the weight of his stare, and for a moment she considered the man behind the reputation. Yet, she quickly reminded herself of her priority. "I'm just doing my job, Mr. Grant," she said, her tone firm. "I have to focus on the plants," Tyler chuckled, a sound rich and deep. "You're a hard one to get to know, aren't you? Most people would jump at the chance to chat with me." Lily took a deep breath, feeling the tension rise. "I'm not most people," she replied, her voice steady. "I value my independence." His smile faltered for the briefest moment, replaced by a flicker of surprise. "Independence. I admire that. But surely you can spare a few moments for a conversation." His tone had shifted, taking on a more earnest edge. Lily shook her head gently. "I really should get back to work. The roses won't prune themselves." "Are you rejecting me, Lily?" he teased. Yet there was an underlying seriousness in his question. "I'm just trying to do my job," she responded, her resolve firm. "I'm not interested in anything beyond that." The air around them thickened, and Tyler's brow furrowed, irritation creeping in. "You know, I'm not used to being turned down. It's a bit humiliating." Lily's heart sank at his words, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm sure you'll get over it, Mr. Grant. You're a very successful man. Rejection is just a part of life." Tyler's eyes narrowed slightly, the playful demeanor replaced by a more serious edge. "You think you can just brush me off? I'm not someone who accepts defeat easily." Lily couldn't help but feel a flicker of anger rise within her. "This isn't a game. I'm not here to play by your rules," she said defiantly, her voice gaining strength. The tension between them crackled, and as Lily turned back to her work, she could feel Tyler's gaze burning into her. He took a step back, his expression hardening, the humor in his eyes replaced by something darker. "You'll regret this," he said quietly, his voice a low rumble. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, her heart racing. But Tyler simply turned away, the playful billionaire now shrouded in a cloud of displeasure. As he walked back toward the patio, Lily felt the weight of his words linger in the air, a sense of foreboding settling in her stomach. Several staff members had witnessed the exchange, their eyes wide with surprise. Whispers began to circulate among them, a mix of curiosity and concern. Lily shook her head, trying to dismiss the encounter from her mind. She focused on the roses, cutting away the dead stems, but the image of Tyler's smirk haunted her. As the day wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The laughter from the patio faded, replaced by hushed tones and sideways glances. Lily could feel the change among her co-workers. They were no longer the friendly faces she had grown accustomed to. Instead, they seemed to watch her with a mix of pity and uncertainty, as if she had become a pariah in a world she had never wanted to enter. With each passing moment, the weight of Tyler's rejection settled heavily upon her. She had always prided herself on her independence, but now, as the sun dipped below the horizon, she felt a growing sense of vulnerability. Tyler, for his part, sat back in his chair, swirling the remnants of his drink, his mind racing. He was not accustomed to rejection, and the sting of it was foreign and uncomfortable. Humiliation seeped in, twisting into anger that fueled a darker part of his nature. He was determined to regain control, to manipulate the narrative in a way that would shield him from any fallout of this unexpected encounter. "Tyler, you okay?" one of his friends asked, noticing the tension in his posture. "Yeah, just..." He paused, his expression shifting as a plan began to form in his mind. "I think it's time to show her that she made a mistake." The glint in his eyes darkened, and as he looked out over the estate, he felt a sense of empowerment rising within him. In a world where he had always been the puppet master, he would not allow a humble gardener to dictate his emotions. No, he would turn the tables. And with that thought, the stage was set for a confrontation that neither of them could have anticipated. As the sun rose above the opulent neighborhood of California, the whispers began to circulate like wildfire. The incident between Tyler Grant and Lily Thompson, once a mere footnote in the daily lives of the estate's workers, had now become the sensational headline of the week. Tyler, known for both his vast fortune and his ruthless demeanor, had skillfully spun the narrative in his favor, painting Lily, his gardener, his rejection, his victim, as a gold digger who had audaciously harassed him. On the morning of the gossip storm, Lily stood in her small apartment, the scent of freshly bloomed jasmine wafting through the open window. She absent-mindedly watered her plants, each droplet of water a reminder of her connection to nature, a stark contrast to the chaos brewing in the world outside. The news had traveled fast, and she could feel the tension in the air. Her phone buzzed incessantly with messages from concerned friends, incredulous neighbors, and even strangers who had heard the tale. "Lily, you won't believe what they're saying," her friend Sarah texted, and Lily could almost hear the worry in her voice. "What are they saying?" Lily replied, her hands trembling slightly as she typed. "That Tyler Grant is claiming you were after his money. It's all over town." Lily's heart sank. She had been focused on her work, on cultivating the beauty around her, never imagining that a simple rejection would lead to such a catastrophic fallout. She had tried to be polite, to maintain her dignity, but now it felt as though that dignity was slipping away, along with her reputation. In the upscale cafe down the street, Tyler sat with his usual entourage, a group of sycophants who thrived in the glow of his wealth and power. They laughed raucously, their voices echoing off the marble walls, drowning out the clinking of silverware and murmurs of other patrons. Tyler's smirk was almost palpable, reveling in the attention and sympathy he was receiving from the gossip mill. "Can you believe that little gardener thought she could play with fire?" Tyler leaned back in his chair, a confident glint in his eye. "I mean, she approached me. She should have known her place." His friend Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "What a rookie move. You should have just fired her, man." Tyler waved his hand dismissively. "Too easy. This is much more entertaining. Besides, it's not every day you find someone who thinks they can take on Tyler Grant." Meanwhile, at the estate, whispers echoed in the halls. The staff exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of pity and disbelief for Lily. "I can't believe she would do something like that," one of the housekeepers murmured, shaking her head. "She's always been so professional," another replied, her brow furrowed in concern. "Why would she suddenly act out?" Lily caught snippets of their conversations as she tended to the vibrant blooms in the garden. The colorful petals seemed to mock her, their beauty contrasting sharply with the turmoil she felt inside. The sunlight danced on the leaves, yet she felt shrouded in darkness. "Lily," called out Mrs. Caldwell, the estate's head of household, her tone sharp. "Can you come here for a moment?" Lily's heart raced as she approached. Mrs. Caldwell's face was a mix of sternness and concern, her fingers tapping nervously against her clipboard. "There's been quite a bit of talk about you, and frankly, it's not good." "I know," Lily replied, her voice steady despite the anxiety bubbling within her. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble." "Trouble?" Mrs. Caldwell raised an eyebrow. "This is more than trouble. People are saying you harassed Mr. Grant. You need to set the record straight." "I tried to," Lily insisted, her frustration boiling over. "But no one is listening. They only hear what Tyler wants them to hear." Mrs. Caldwell sighed, her expression softening. "You have to be careful, Lily. This is a wealthy neighborhood, and the people here will turn on you in a heartbeat. You need to protect yourself." Lily nodded, the weight of her situation pressing down on her. She felt cornered, as if the walls were closing in around her. "Maybe I should just leave," she suggested quietly, the thought both terrifying and liberating. "Don't say that," Mrs. Caldwell replied sharply. "You've worked hard to be here. Don't give him the satisfaction of driving you away." As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the estate, Tyler basked in the glow of his latest party. His lavish gatherings had always drawn the elite of the community, but tonight felt different. He felt untouchable, surrounded by laughter and admiration, the perfect distraction from the chaos he had created. "Tyler, you've really outdone yourself this time," one guest, a glamorous socialite named Veronica, exclaimed, her glass raised high. "This is the talk of the town. Just a little fun," he replied, his charm on full display. "You know how it is. People love a good story, especially one with a villain," she added, her eyes glinting with mischief. Tyler smirked, enjoying the moment. He had become the hero of his own tale, a man wronged by a desperate woman. His heart swelled with pride, believing himself to be the puppet master of this entire situation. Unbeknownst to him, however, shadows lingered near the edges of the party. A figure stood apart from the crowd, watching intently. The man's eyes narrowed as he observed Tyler's arrogance, the way he reveled in the attention. The witness was a ghost of sorts, a reminder of the past that neither Tyler nor Lily was fully aware of. As the night wore on, the music thumped, laughter echoed, and the glow of chandeliers illuminated the opulence of the moment. But for Lily, the world outside felt cold and unwelcoming. As she lay in bed that night, tears streaming down her cheeks, she wondered how everything had spiraled out of control so quickly. "What did I do to deserve this?" she whispered into the darkness, feeling utterly alone. Back at the estate, Tyler was still riding the wave of his fabricated narrative. He reveled in the attention, the sympathy, and the power he wielded. But deep down, a flicker of unease began to nag at him. What if the truth came out? What if Lily managed to turn the tide against him? But Tyler quickly dismissed the thought. He was untouchable, a king in his domain. And as he glanced at the bustling scene around him, the laughter and the clinking of glasses, he felt invincible, an illusion that would soon be shattered, unbeknownst to him. In the shadows, the mysterious figure continued to watch, a silent witness to the unfolding drama, a reminder that every action has consequences, and the past has a way of resurfacing when least expected. As the night deepened, the stage was set for a confrontation that would change everything for both Tyler and Lily. Lily Thompson stood at the edge of the community park, her heart heavy with the burden of recent events. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden hue over the landscape, but it did little to brighten her mood. She watched as children played in the distance, their laughter echoing through the air, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling in her life. The whispers of the neighborhood had reached a crescendo, and her once peaceful existence had turned into a public spectacle. Just as she was lost in her thoughts, a familiar voice broke through the haze of her despair. "Lily, there you are." It was Marcus, her childhood friend, jogging toward her, a wide grin plastered on his face. His presence was a welcome relief amidst the chaos. "Hey, Marcus," she managed to smile, though her eyes betrayed her inner turmoil. "You look like you could use a friend," he said, his expression shifting to one of concern. "I heard about everything that's been happening with Tyler. It's ridiculous." Lily sighed, the weight of her situation pressing down on her shoulders. "I never imagined it would escalate like this. One moment I was just doing my job, and the next, I'm being portrayed as some sort of villain." Marcus shook his head, his brow furrowing. "You're not a villain, Lily. You're one of the most genuine people I know. Tyler is just trying to save face because you rejected him." "Maybe I should have held it differently," she murmured, staring at the ground. "I just wanted to keep my job." "Sometimes, standing your ground is more important than keeping a job," Marcus replied, his tone firm. "You deserve to be respected, not manipulated. We can't let him get away with this." She looked up at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. "You always know what to say. Remember our childhood? We had dreams of making a difference in the world," he reminded her, his voice warm with nostalgia. "This is your chance to fight back. Don't let Tyler's arrogance define you." They fell into a comfortable silence, memories of their youth flooding back. They recalled the days spent daydreaming under the old oak tree, planning to change the world one garden at a time. "You were always so passionate about plants and nature," Marcus said, chuckling softly. "I remember you saying you wanted to create landscapes that made people feel alive." "Yeah, I wanted to be a landscape architect," Lily admitted, her voice tinged with longing. "But life took a different turn. I had to focus on surviving, you know. It's hard to dream when you're just trying to make ends meet." Marcus's expression softened. "You've done so much already, Lily. You've built a life for yourself in this neighborhood. Don't let Tyler take that away from you. You have people who care about you." "I don't know if I can fight this," Lily confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if it gets worse? What if I lose everything?" "Sometimes, losing everything is the first step to finding yourself," Marcus said, his words resonating deeply. "You have to fight for your dignity. I'll be here every step of the way." Lily felt a flicker of hope igniting within her. "You really think I can make a difference?" "I know you can," he affirmed. "Let's gather the community. Show them who you are. Let them see the real Lily Thompson, not the distorted version Tyler's trying to create." As they spoke, a new determination began to take root in Lily's heart. She realized that her story was worth telling, that her truth could resonate with others. "Okay," she said finally, her voice steadier. "Let's do it." Meanwhile, across town, Tyler Grant sat in his opulent office, the skyline of California stretching out behind him. He stared out the window, his expression a mixture of frustration and disbelief. How had he let things spiral so out of control? The whispers of the neighborhood felt like a cacophony, each voice a reminder of the precarious position he found himself in. His mother's unexpected visit earlier that day had left him rattled. She stood in his lavish living room, her disapproval palpable as she confronted him about his treatment of Lily. "You think money can protect you, Tyler? You're wrong. People will turn against you if you continue to act like this," she warned, her voice sharp. "Mom, you don't understand," he snapped, his voice rising. "This is business. It's about perception and control. It's about decency, Tyler," she retorted, her eyes narrowing. "You've lost sight of what truly matters. Money cannot buy respect or love." Her words echoed in his mind as he sat in silence. Part of him knew she was right, but another part thrived on the power he wielded. He was Tyler Grant after all, a billionaire who could bend the world to his will. Yet for the first time, he felt a twinge of doubt creeping in. The next day, the local news station arrived at his estate, cameras poised and ready to capture every word. Tyler took a deep breath, steeling himself for the onslaught of questions that were sure to come. As he sat down for the interview, he glanced at the camera, his expression carefully crafted to convey confidence. "Mr. Grant, can you tell us about your experience with Lily Thompson?" the interviewer asked, leaning in with an inquisitive look. He smirked, the arrogance creeping back into his demeanor. "Lily approached me under the guise of a professional relationship, but it quickly turned into something more inappropriate," he stated, his voice dripping with faux sincerity. "I had no choice but to stand my ground." As he spoke, he felt a strange sensation, a flicker of doubt creeping into his mind. Was he really the victim in this situation? Or was he merely a man trying to mask his insecurities with a facade of power? Meanwhile, Lily and Marcus were busy rallying the community. They organized a gathering at the park, inviting everyone to hear Lily's side of the story. As word spread, they were met with a mix of support and skepticism. Some were eager to hear her truth, while others remained wary, still swayed by Tyler's wealth and influence. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a beautiful glow over the park, Lily stood at the center of a gathering crowd. She felt a rush of nerves, but Marcus stood beside her, a steadying presence. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I know many of you have heard rumors, and I want to set the record straight." As she spoke, she felt the weight of her story lifting, the truth flowing from her lips. She shared her experiences, her dreams, and her rejection of Tyler's advances, not out of disdain, but out of a desire to protect her own dignity. "I'm not a gold digger," she insisted, her voice growing stronger. "I'm a gardener, a person who loves this community and wants to make it better. I didn't choose this fight, but I refuse to let someone like Tyler define who I am." The crowd listened intently, the murmurs of support growing louder. In that moment, Lily realized that her rejection of Tyler was more than just a personal decision. It was a stand against the arrogance and entitlement that often accompanied wealth. As she finished speaking, the crowd erupted in applause, a wave of solidarity washing over her. She caught Marcus's eye, and he gave her an encouraging nod, pride shining in his gaze. Little did they know, as the evening unfolded, Tyler's arrogance was beginning to backfire, and the community's perception of him was shifting. The air was thick with anticipation, and the clash between two worlds was only just beginning. The camera crew set up in the expansive living room of Tyler Grant's estate, the sunlight streaming through the large windows and casting an ethereal glow on the pristine marble floors. Lily Thompson sat on the edge of a lavish couch, her hands clenched in her lap. She could feel her heart racing, a mix of anxiety and determination bubbling within her. This was her chance to speak out, to share her side of the story in a world that had turned upside down overnight. "Are you ready, Lily?" asked the interviewer, a woman with sharp features and a no-nonsense attitude. She adjusted her glasses, her gaze steady but sympathetic. Lily nodded, inhaling deeply to steady her nerves. "Yes, I think so." As the camera began rolling, she forced herself to meet the lens directly. "My name is Lily Thompson, and I am a gardener. I work at the Grant estate," she began, her voice trembling slightly but gaining strength as she continued. "Recently, I have been labeled as a harasser, a gold digger, And I want to set the record straight. The interviewer leaned in, encouraging her with a nod. What happened between you and Tyler Grant? I met him while working at his estate, Lily explained, her brow furrowing as she recalled the initial encounters. I was just doing my job tending to the gardens. He started flirting with me, but I knew who he was. I knew his reputation. She paused, her thoughts swirling. I didn't want to get involved. I was trying to build my life, and I didn't want to be seen as just another woman chasing after a billionaire. The interviewer's expression softened. And when you rejected him? Lily took a deep breath, the memory of that moment flooding her mind. I told him I wasn't interested. It was a polite rejection, but it felt like I had thrown a stone into a calm lake. The ripples of that moment changed everything. Her voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on. He reacted with anger and humiliation. It was as if I had taken something from him, and he needed to take it back. The shift in public sentiment was palpable. As Lily recounted her story, a sense of empathy surged among viewers. Social media buzzed with supportive messages, and hashtags began to emerge in her favor. Meanwhile, the camera shifted to Tyler, who sat in a nearby office, his jaw clenched as he watched the interview unfold on a monitor. Damn it, he muttered under his breath, his eyes narrowing. He could feel the tides turning against him, and it filled him with a sense of dread. He had always been the one in control, the one who dictated the narrative. This was a new feeling, vulnerability. She can't be getting away with this, he whispered, plotting his next move in the silence of his lavish office. Determined to undermine Lily's newfound support, Tyler decided to dig into her past. He picked up his phone and dialed the number of a private investigator he had used in the past. I need you to find everything you can about Lily Thompson, he commanded, his voice taut with tension. I want to know her secrets, the skeletons in her closet. Ice, Mr. Grant. I'll get started right away, came the calm voice on the other end, a stark contrast to Tyler's bubbling rage. As he hung up, a sense of satisfaction washed over him. He would unearth something, anything, to turn the narrative back in his favor. The investigator worked quickly, sifting through Lily's history, uncovering details that Tyler had never anticipated. A few days later, he arrived at Tyler's office with a folder in hand, his expression serious. Mr. Grant, I have some information regarding Lily Thompson, he said, sliding the folder across the polished desk. Tyler's heart raced as he opened it. His curiosity piqued. The investigator continued. Lily was once a promising landscape architect. She had dreams of creating beautiful spaces, but she lost everything when a corporation wrongfully terminated her. Why? Why? Tyler asked, his brow furrowing as he scanned the documents filled with legal jargon and personal testimonies. Corporate greed, the investigator replied, his tone grave. She was involved in a lawsuit against a company that you might be familiar with. They destroyed her career, leaving her with nothing. It seems she's been trying to rebuild her life ever since. Tyler's mind whirled. He had always prided himself on his business acumen, but hearing this story felt like a punch to the gut. Here was a woman who had fought against the very kind of corporate tactics he employed, and yet he had used his power to belittle her. The irony was almost unbearable. What else? Tyler pressed, almost desperate to find a way to twist this to his advantage. There's more, the investigator said, flipping through the pages. She worked for a company that employed a man named Richard Calloway. He was the one who orchestrated the layoffs and the wrongful terminations. Lily's case was one of many that fell under his ruthless decisions. Tyler's expression darkened. Calloway? I know him. He's a snake. Exactly. But here's the kicker. Lily's story runs deeper. She was part of a project that had potential to change the community. The company shut it down, and she lost her job and her dreams. Tyler's heart sank. With each revelation, the weight of his actions pressed down harder. He had manipulated a woman whose life had already been shattered by corporate greed, much like his own. It felt as if he were staring into a mirror that reflected the worst parts of himself. Do you think the media will find out about this? Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. They already are digging. If you're not careful, this could blow back on you in ways you can't imagine, the investigator warned, his tone somber. Tyler leaned back in his chair, feeling the walls closing in around him. He had thought he could control the narrative, but now he was caught in a web of consequences he had woven himself. The realization that he had become the villain in someone else's story was jarring. He glanced at the monitor where Lily's interview played on repeat, her honesty shining through. "What have I done?" he murmured, the weight of guilt pressing against his chest. The feelings of invincibility he had clung to began to unravel, replaced by a dawning understanding of the real damage he had caused. As the chapter closed, Tyler found himself grappling with a profound sense of unease. The complexities of ambition, betrayal, and the quest for dignity clashed within him. He was left with a choice: to continue down a path of destruction, or to confront a woman who had inadvertently held up a mirror to his own soul. The stakes had never been higher, and the question echoed in his mind: could he change, or was he forever destined to repeat the mistakes of his past? Tyler Grant sat in his grand study, the walls adorned with portraits of his ancestors, each gaze piercing and filled with expectations. The lavish furnishings, elegant bookshelves, and plush rugs served as a reminder of his wealth, but at that moment they felt more like shackles. He leaned back in his leather chair, staring out the large bay window, overlooking his estate's sprawling gardens, where Lily Thompson had once tended to the flowers with a delicate touch. Her rejection echoed in his mind, a constant reminder of how he had underestimated her strength. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden light over the landscape, Tyler wrestled with the guilt that had begun to gnaw at him. He had always prided himself on his ability to control situations, to bend them to his will. But this time, the consequences of his actions were spiraling out of control. The community, once enamored with his wealth and charm, now whispered Lily's name with a mixture of sympathy and anger towards him. He had painted her as the harasser, yet here she was, rising like a phoenix from the ashes of his machinations, her story gaining traction and support. "Tyler, are you coming to dinner?" His assistant Jenna peeked through the door, breaking his reverie. Her voice was laced with concern, recognizing the storm brewing behind his eyes. "Not tonight, Jenna. I need some time alone," he replied curtly, not bothering to look away from the window. "All right. But remember, the board meeting is tomorrow. You can't avoid everything," she reminded him gently before closing the door. He sighed, letting the weight of her words linger. The board had always been supportive, but recent events had left him vulnerable, causing a rift in their confidence in his leadership. His mind drifted back to Lily, to the passion she exuded when speaking about her dreams of community gardens, a stark contrast to his own ambitions that often trampled over others. Meanwhile, Lily stood in her small apartment, surrounded by the remnants of her past. The walls were adorned with sketches of gardens she had designed, vibrant colors coming to life on paper. She glanced at the calendar hanging next to her desk. It was marked with red ink, a reminder of the community meeting she had organized. A sense of determination surged within her as she prepared for the evening ahead. "Are you ready for this, Lily?" Marcus, her childhood friend, asked as he entered her apartment, a box of homemade snacks in hand. "You've got a lot of people counting on you." "I have to do this, Marcus, for myself, for everyone who believes in this project," she replied, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. "Just remember, it's not just about the garden. It's about reclaiming your voice," he encouraged, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Lily nodded, taking a deep breath. "I know. I've spent too long letting others define me. It's time to show them who I really am." As she gathered her papers and notes, she felt a surge of hope. The community had rallied around her, offering support and resources, and she was determined to create a space that would bring people together, a sanctuary amidst the chaos Tyler had created. That evening, as the meeting commenced, Lily stood at the front of the room, her heart racing with anticipation. The community center was filled with familiar faces. all eager to hear her vision. She adjusted her glasses, clearing her throat as she began to speak. "Thank you all for coming. I know these past few weeks have been challenging, but I believe we have the power to create something beautiful together," she said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "The community garden will not only provide fresh produce, but also serve as a space for us to connect, to learn, and to grow together. I want this garden to reflect our values: diversity, resilience, and unity." Applause erupted, and her heart swelled with pride. Lily felt empowered, her confidence blossoming as she shared her vision. She spoke about workshops, community events, and the importance of sustainability, her enthusiasm infectious. In the back of the room, Tyler stood in the shadows, incognito, his heart pounding in his chest as he listened to Lily speak. He had come to this meeting out of curiosity and guilt, unable to resist the pull of her passion. For the first time, he saw her not just as the gardener he had once flirted with, but as a leader, a beacon of hope in a community that had been fractured by his actions. Every word she spoke resonated within him, making him question the values he had held dear for so long. As he watched her engage with the audience, he felt a pang of remorse for the way he had treated her. She was not the gold digger he had portrayed. She was a woman with dreams, aspirations, and an undeniable spirit that shone brightly in the dimly lit room. After the meeting, as people mingled and shared ideas, Lily felt a sense of accomplishment. She was no longer the victim of Tyler's narrative. She was a force to be reckoned with. But as she looked around, her heart sank when she noticed Tyler lingering at the back, his expression unreadable. "Lily," he said, stepping forward, his voice low and tentative. "Can we talk?" She felt a mix of emotions, anger, confusion, but also a flicker of curiosity. "What do you want, Tyler? To gloat? To remind me of what you've done?" "No," he replied, shaking his head. "I came to listen, to understand. I've made mistakes." She crossed her arms, her resolve hardening. "Mistakes? You ruined my life, Tyler. You twisted the truth and turned people against me." "I know," he admitted, his voice heavy with regret. "And I'm sorry. I've been selfish and blind to the consequences of my actions. Watching you tonight, seeing how passionate you are about this project, it made me realize how wrong I was." Lily's heart raced, torn between the desire to confront him and the recognition of his vulnerability. "You think an apology makes everything okay? You think you can just walk in here and act like nothing happened?" "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, his eyes earnest. "But I want to make things right. I want to help you with the garden, to support what you're building." She studied him, searching for any hint of insincerity, but all she saw was a man grappling with the weight of his actions. "Why now? Why the sudden change of heart?" "Because I've realized that money and power don't mean anything if you're alone," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've spent my life chasing success at the expense of others, and I don't want to be that person anymore." Lily felt conflicted, her heart torn between the desire to push him away and the urge to believe that people could change. "You think you can just step in and fix everything? It's not that simple, Tyler." "I know," he replied, his gaze unwavering. "But I want to try. I want to support you, to help make this garden a reality." As the tension hung thick in the air, Lily considered his offer. It felt like a gamble, entrusting her vision to the very man who had sought to destroy her. But deep down, she sensed a shift in him, a flicker of hope that perhaps they could both find redemption. "Fine," she said finally, her voice steady. "But know this, I will hold you accountable. If you try to manipulate this project, I won't hesitate to expose you." A faint smile crossed Tyler's lips. "I wouldn't expect anything less." As they stood there, the echoes of their past decisions loomed large, yet the possibility of a different future flickered between them. It was a fragile truce, but in that moment both felt a sense of hope, a chance to rebuild, not just the garden, but their lives as well. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the community garden, as the grand opening unfolded. Lush green plants, freshly planted by eager hands, adorned the space, while cheerful decorations fluttered in the gentle breeze. Children laughed and played, while adults mingled, sharing stories and ideas about the future of the garden. Among the crowd, Lily Thompson stood, a beacon of hope and determination, as she greeted her neighbors, her smile radiant with pride. "Thank you so much for coming," she exclaimed, her voice steady despite the butterflies in her stomach. She glanced around, feeling a sense of belonging that had long eluded her. It was a moment she had dreamed of, a community coming together, united by a common purpose. "Your vision is incredible, Lily," said Marcus, her childhood friend, who stood beside her beaming with admiration. "I knew you could do it." "Thanks, Marcus," Lily replied, her eyes twinkling. "I just want to show everyone that we can create something beautiful together." As the crowd gathered for the opening ceremony, Tyler Grant lurked at the edge, partially hidden behind a cluster of blooming marigolds. He couldn't shake off the pang of envy mixed with admiration as he watched Lily interact effortlessly with the people around her. She was a natural leader, drawing people in with her warmth and authenticity. Tyler, usually the center of attention in his world of wealth and influence, felt like a ghost in this vibrant atmosphere. His heart raced as he recalled the decisions that had led them to this moment. He had once held her future in his hands, and now he felt powerless, watching her thrive without him. His thoughts were interrupted when he noticed the subtle rustling of paper in Lily's hands. She had received a letter, the envelope crinkled and worn, the edges frayed, as if it had traveled a long way to reach her. "What's that?" Marcus asked, noticing the change in her demeanor. Lily hesitated before tearing the envelope open, her fingers trembling slightly. "I don't know yet. It's from my father. I thought I had burned all his letters." As she unfolded the letter, her expression shifted from curiosity to shock. She read silently for a moment, her eyes widening with each word. A frown creased her forehead as she glanced at Marcus, who was watching her intently. "What does it say?" he urged, concern lacing his voice. "It's about my family history. There's more to it than I knew. Apparently, there's a feud between our families," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sounds of the celebration. "Wait, what?" Marcus exclaimed, leaning closer. "Lily, are you sure? You can't be serious. I don't know what to think. This says that our ancestors made decisions that affected generations, and it ties back to—" She paused, her breath catching in her throat. "Tyler's family." The realization hit like a tidal wave. A connection, a legacy of conflict, woven through time, binding them together in ways they never imagined. The weight of the letter hung heavily in the air, a stark contrast to the lightness of the day. Just then, a commotion erupted at the edge of the garden. Tyler, still concealed among the crowd, felt a surge of anxiety as he recognized the familiar figure of the private investigator he had hired. The man, dressed in an unassuming gray suit, pushed his way through the gathering, his face set in grim determination. "Ladies and gentlemen," the investigator called out, drawing the attention of the crowd, "I have something important to reveal, something that concerns all of us here today." Lily's heart raced, her instincts screaming that this was not going to end well. "Marcus, what's happening?" she asked, her voice rising with panic. "Stay calm, Lily. Let's see what he has to say," Marcus replied, his jaw clenched, ready to defend her if necessary. The investigator continued, his tone authoritative. "I have uncovered evidence regarding the actions of Tyler Grant that may have serious implications for our community, and for Lily Thompson." As he spoke, he held up a series of photographs and documents, the crowd gasping collectively as they caught sight of the damning evidence. "Here we have documents detailing unethical business practices, manipulation and deceit that were swept under the rug in Tyler's rise to power. And more importantly, connections to Lily's past, her family's struggles intertwined with his decisions." Tyler's heart raced as he stepped forward, intent on confronting the investigator. "What is this nonsense?" he demanded, his voice booming over the murmurs of the crowd. "You're trying to ruin me." But the investigator didn't back down. "I'm here to expose the truth, Tyler. Your actions have consequences, and the people deserve to know how you've affected their lives and livelihoods." Lily stood frozen, the letter still clutched in her hand, feeling the ground shift beneath her. The weight of the letter returned to Lily's thoughts, the hidden connection between their families echoing in her mind. She wanted to scream, to run, to hide from the truth that had suddenly become too heavy to bear. But as she looked around at the faces of her neighbors, she realized that this was not just about her and Tyler, it was about everyone. "Maybe it's time we confront the truth, Tyler," she said finally, her voice strong despite the turmoil inside her. "But not just for us. For our families, for everyone affected by our pasts." As the crowd fell silent, the investigator stepped back, allowing the weight of their words to sink in. Tyler and Lily stood at the center of the storm, two people intertwined by fate, surrounded by a community that had witnessed their journey unfold. The air was thick with unspoken words, secrets waiting to be unearthed, and the promise of confrontation lingered on the horizon. As they faced each other, both aware that the truth once revealed would alter everything they thought they knew.